Do you know what the definition of an animal is?
What's that?
The definition of an animal is a living thing, an organism that is usually motile, lacks cell walls, is heterotrophic. Those are all things that humans are, it turns out. So I actually am a biologist with multiple degrees in biology, and I specifically study evolution. So, yeah, evolution is real.
I have a question for you. Okay, I have a really good question.
I'm sure this won't be a straw man at all.
Monkeys. If we came from monkeys, why are there still monkeys? Why is there? You came from monkeys.
Sorry, hold on. No, just have to ask you, man. If you came from your parents, how do you still have a brother?
No, it doesn't make sense. How is it? No, I asked you a question. You answer it. If we came from a monkey and we evolved into something greater than a monkey, why is there still monkeys? Why is there still chimpanzees?
I have to ask.
And why are we
I have
people?
to ask. Greg, James, sorry, I apologize. I have Greg over here on the other side. James, I'm going to ask you a sincere question. I mean this. I really genuinely do. I'm not trying to fuck with you. Are you being serious right now?
You didn't answer my question.
I promise I will. I just need to understand who I'm talking to. Are you fucking with me, or do you genuinely think that that's a serious question about evolution?
That's a very serious question that you seem like you don't have the answer to.
No, I promise I do. I just wanted to know how to handle this, because if you're being serious, then I'm going to handle it totally differently. I'm actually going to explain it. But I need you to understand first that is a remarkably simple question about evolution, and it shows me, and I don't mean this to be offensively. I mean this, please understand, this sounds shitty, but you are seriously don't understand the first thing about evolution if you can ask that question. So I'm going to start from the beginning to try to make it make sense. But I promise you, I'm not trying to talk down to you or anything like that. I just need you to understand that is I need you, because I assume you probably heard that from somebody else. And the person who told you that was fucking you over. That you need to know that. Okay.
Yeah.
That's so here's how it is. Okay. Here's what this actually is that the monkeys and apes and things that are around us today are not our ancestors. They are our cousins. So if you go back, say, for example, with chimpanzees, right? When we look at the fossil record, we find that our common ancestor with chimpanzees lived about 7 to 9 million years ago. That was an animal that was not a chimpanzee and was not a human. It was a totally different thing. More likely it was an animal called Sahelanthropus, but we're kind of, whatever. So here's this animal here. Its descendants over the next 7 million years would then branch off and become animals like humans, chimpanzees, and bonobos. So when you look at life today, all the animals and plants and everything alive today, not a single thing alive today came from anything else alive today. That's not what evolution is. That's not how it works. The definition, the actual textbook definition of evolution, is any change in the heritable characteristics of a population over multiple generations. That is something that is beyond proven, completely unquestionably proven. Now, when we look at the fossil record and we see where we as humans came from, okay? As a grad student, I studied bioanthropology, the evolution and biology of humans, okay? We have a huge fossil record, a huge amount of evidence showing where we came from. And it's not the monkeys that are around today. So when you ask what I said a minute ago, when you ask why are there still monkeys, it's as if I asked, I have a brother. If I came from my parents, then how do I have a brother? It's the exact same thing. We came from totally different animals. And now we and chimpanzees are cousins that are closely related. We share that ancestor, but we didn't come from chimpanzees. We didn't come from any of the monkeys around today. That's the answer to your question. That's what that actually is.
Okay, I hear you on that. But the thing is if we came from that monkey, the human-like creature you're talking about, then where's that creature at?
They're extinct. No. They went extinct. So this is the process where you have the whole point of evolution is selection pressure. You're meeting the requirement of your environment, right? So those animals changed over successive generations. Little by little, they changed. And some of them fit into the niche, into the little habitat of being a chimpanzee, and some of them fit better in a different niche and slowly went human-wise, and everybody before you changed. So again, just to make it clear, saying where are those animals is like saying, if I came from my grandparents, why are my grandparents dead, right? They are not me. They are a totally different group. So Sahelanthropus, the probable most likely common ancestor of humans and chimpanzees, they died millions and millions and millions of years ago. And then next thing, and to be very clear, I want to be, one thing that's kind of tough for people to wrap their heads around, but it's really important to understand, especially when you're first learning about evolution, is that the concept of species is bullshit. It's made up. There's no cut line. Right. So it's not like, our ancestors, there's one species called Homo habilis. There was never a time when all of the Homo habilis gave birth to Homo erectus and then they all died. Right. That didn't work that way. It's a slow change. And what we're doing is we're just drawing a line and saying, this is now what we're going to call a new species. If you had every single skeleton, if you had my skeleton, my parents, their parents, their parents, their parents, all the way back 4.5 million years to Ardipithecus ramidus, right? If you have all of these perfect skeletons lined up, there's not a single part where you can point at and say that's now a human and everything else isn't a human. That's, it's just a species is a totally arbitrary box that we draw around a group of individuals in a population. We say this is what this is.
So you think this is it? This is our you think this is our final form? What we are now, or are we going to evolve into something else?
Nope. Because evolution shows, like when we study evolution, it's very clear that as long as there's reproduction, there's going to be evolution. As long as you're reproducing, making more copies, there's always going to be evolution. So what happens a lot of times when people don't know a lot about evolution, when they haven't learned about it, they'll have this model in their head that we call orthogenesis. And orthogenesis literally means like upright creation is basically what it translates to. It means that evolution has a goal in mind, that humans are the most evolved thing, that we're the pinnacle of evolution. And that's not true. Evolution is not a ladder. We evolved the way we did because of the selection pressures of the environment around us. And selection pressure is just a word for saying, like, if you do this, you die. If you don't do that, you die. It's the rules of the game for living, basically. You know what I mean? So selection pressure is anything like predators, carbon dioxide concentration, access to food and water, anything that allows you to live and reproduce, right? So the reason why we evolved the way that we did, and the reason why chimpanzees evolved the way that they did, and the reason why sponges evolved the way that they did, and all these other things, is just because it fit properly into their environment. That's what we mean by survival of the fittest. It doesn't mean strongest. It means you're able to meet the requirement of the environment that you live in, like a puzzle piece fitting into place. And so we, as long as we're still reproducing, will continue to evolve. And we already see trends in our evolutionary history. We don't know what we're going to turn into next, quote, because again, that's bullshit. Species doesn't really work that way. But we already see humans are getting taller and taller because we have more consistent access to nutrition. We're getting bigger and bigger heads because we have cesarean sections and you don't have to fit a watermelon out of a cervix the size of a quarter anymore, right? And we're seeing these trends in our evolution based on the selection pressures that are still acting on us today. Differential reproductive and survival success is all that is. So yeah, this is not the end of our evolution unless we all die, and then it will be.
Well, so do you believe in the Big Bang then?
So the Big Bang is another thing that we have a huge amount of evidence proving. And I want to be very clear. Okay. That's another thing that a lot of times gets twisted up and made into bullshit. The term Big Bang was actually that word was coined as a joke. It's not like Big Bang is such a misleading. I must prefer the term everywhere stretch because that's what it actually is. There was no explosion in space that made the world. That's not what the Big Bang actually says. But you can actually, find really like the most basic evidence of this happened with this guy named Hubble. He was an astronomer and astrophysicist. And basically what happened was we're looking out in the universe around us and we see all these galaxies are moving apart from each other. And based on what we call redshifting, we can tell how fast they're moving apart from each other. And so we're like, okay, well, first of all, if they're all moving away from each other, then it stands to reason they were all in one place at one time, right? And then also we notice that the farther away they are, the faster they're expanding. And you can plot this on a line. You get this really cool slope that we call Hubble's constant. And you can plug that in, you get Hubble's law, and you can literally, like, I did a video on my YouTube channel about this if you want to watch, or even call back in next week where I'll be back on the show. I'll be happy to talk about this more. I'm going on for way too long, but like, You can literally do like basic algebra and you come up with a number for the age of the universe. And the more data we collect from the galaxies around us, the more concise that number gets. And it comes out around to 13.8 billion years over and over and over and over again. And so it shows us that at one point, 13.8 billion years ago, all matter and all space would have been condensed into one point. And that is where we get this concept of a Big Bang. But again, I am grossly oversimplifying all of that. So if any of that sounds a little bit funny, feel free to call me out on it. I'll go into it next week if you want to call back.
Oh, understandable. But I mean, but you can see how, I mean, I get it. You don't believe what I believe. I respect that.
Yeah.
But you can get how, even from my view, I would think that your philosophy and what you think is nonsense though, too. You know what I mean? Based off, because it's like,
dude,
well, I mean, it's like, well, how did this all
on the
start
street?
You know,
if somebody walked up to me on the street as a child and told me about the Big Bang and evolution, I would have thought they were crazy, because it sounds like a fucking fairy tale. It does. It's mind blowing. The difference is, and this is what's really important, is that the vast preponderance of evidence supports these things. This is not just a thing where like somebody thought it was kind of a fun idea and we wrote it down and we all agreed to say it. This is something that has changed a million times. I mean, evolution, just the story of like how we came to understand what fossils are. Like the idea of extinction was fucking earth-shattering. It completely changed the world of science. And that's the same thing with evolution as a whole. Same thing with the Big Bang. Same thing. Did you know plate tectonics is a theory that was only accepted in the 1960s? There were huge debates as to whether or not to teach plate tectonics in school. But the evidence showed that that's real. And so we went with it. And that's the same thing. If you told me as a child that all the land masses on Earth are like islands floating on a sea of lava moving around, I would think that was crazy. But that's what the evidence has shown us. And again and again and again, the evidence comes back the same way. Evolution, the Big Bang, all these things, they have a million chances to be wrong, and they keep coming back right. And so this is not a philosophy or a belief system. This is the only philosophy here is that I follow the evidence wherever it leads, no matter what, even if I don't like it. And the evidence shows that these things are real. That's why I became a scientist.